The royal family has just witnessed a dramatic turning point as the quiet and often overlooked James, Earl of Wessex, steps into the spotlight with an announcement no one saw coming. After years of being shielded from the public eye, James has now accepted a brand new HRH title, officially becoming a prince of the realm. This move doesn't just elevate his royal status, it reshapes the future dynamics of the monarchy itself. But why now? And what does this bold shift really mean? A young royal at the edge of destiny. For centuries, the British royal family has captivated the world with its crowns, palaces, and timeless traditions. Beyond ceremony, it is the human drama, the tension between duty and personal desire, that intrigues people most. Typically, attention centers on the monarch, the heir or Princess Catherine, whose every step sparks analysis. But now, an unexpected figure has entered the spotlight: James, Earl of Wessex. Unlike his high-profile relatives, James has grown up away from intense media scrutiny, making his quiet emergence into public interest a refreshing shift in the ongoing royal narrative. At 17, James seems, on the surface, to be an ordinary teenager. Like many boys his age, he spends his days focused on school, preparing for university, and taking those early steps toward adulthood. To most, his life looks calm and ordinary, unmarked by the intense scrutiny that has shadowed his cousins, Princes William and Harry, since their earliest years. But beneath that calm lies an extraordinary truth. James's choices are far from ordinary, and the path before him is unlike that of any other young man. James faces a decision that could alter not only his own future, but also the shape of the monarchy itself. The question is simple, yet monumental. Will he step forward as a working royal, dedicating his life to public service, duty, and the unending gaze of the world's cameras? Or will he choose the quieter road, one of privacy, independence, and freedom, where he can live as close to a normal life as a grandson of the late Queen Elizabeth II can possibly manage? James, Earl of Wessex, faces a decision that extends beyond his personal future. With King Charles III promoting a slimmed-down monarchy, the institution relies on a smaller pool of royals to carry official duties. James's choice, whether to step into public life or pursue a private path, could shape the monarchy's strength and sustainability. If he accepts the role, he may ease pressure on senior royals and reinforce the crown's relevance. If not, the burden grows heavier on others, exposing cracks in Charles's vision. Remarkably, the monarchy's future may partially hinge on this little-seen teenager's decision. Will James embrace the crown's call or quietly walk away? Let's delve into the details of the critical stage in which James finds himself, as he navigates between heavy personal decisions as well as royal duties. James on the brink of adulthood and independence. James, Earl of Wessex, the youngest child of Prince Edward and Duchess Sophie, is quietly approaching a life-changing moment. At just 17 years old, and with his 18th birthday on the horizon this December, James stands at the threshold of adulthood, preparing to step out from the sheltered environment of his family home. His sister, Lady Louise Windsor, has already taken this step, currently studying in Scotland, and now it seems her younger brother may soon follow in her footsteps. James is completing his A-levels at Radley College, and next year could see him packing his bags for university, a move that would mark another defining milestone in his personal journey toward independence. For members of the royal family, moving away from home for undergraduate studies is more than just an academic choice. It is a tradition. Beyond textbooks and lectures, university life offers them something rare: the chance to live as young adults outside the constant gaze of royal protocol. It's an opportunity to taste normalcy, build friendships, and explore their identity without the strict confines of palace life. In these new surroundings, young royals can discover independence, make mistakes, and grow, experiences that help shape them as individuals as much as their education does. Yet, despite the growing curiosity surrounding James's next steps, the details remain tightly under wraps. Royal correspondent Danielle Stacey notes that this air of mystery is intentional. Unlike senior royals, James and his sister have grown up largely away from the spotlight, thanks to the careful choices of their parents, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. Edward and Sophie have consistently shielded their children from relentless media attention, ensuring that they enjoy as normal a childhood as possible. Because of this, the public should not expect early announcements or grand statements about James's educational plans. His future, at least for now, remains his own to decide. Still, if royal history is anything to go by, there are clues about what might lie ahead. Many young royals before James have taken gap years after finishing school. Such a path allows them to broaden their horizons, gain valuable life experience, and enjoy a degree of freedom before the responsibilities of adulthood weighs in more heavily. Should James choose this route, it would not be surprising if he spent time abroad, carefully avoiding the limelight before beginning his studies. And when he does start university, tradition suggests he may opt for a campus outside London, where he can maintain both privacy and a more authentic student life. Whatever path James takes, one thing is certain: the coming year will mark a pivotal moment in his life as he begins to carve out his own identity within and beyond the royal family. Why would the monarchy need James so badly at this moment? What explanation could justify the urgent need for the inclusion of James in the royal circles? A crown under pressure. To truly understand why James's decision carries such enormous weight, we must first step back and examine the current state of the royal family. When King Charles III ascended the throne in 2022, he made no secret of his vision. He wanted a smaller, more efficient monarchy, one that was modern, less expensive, and more relatable to the people.
And for things like that, sovereign risks, which so many companies and investors find difficult to deal with.
The idea was to strip away excess, cut costs, and focus on a handful of royals who could embody duty with dignity. It sounded like a noble plan, but the reality has proved far more complicated. The slimmed-down monarchy may have looked neat on paper, yet in practice it has been stretched to its limits. Senior royals have either stepped away or been forced out. Scandals have shaken public trust, and health issues have robbed the institution of its strongest pillars. Prince Andrew's fall from grace after damaging controversies left a permanent hole. Prince Harry and Meghan's dramatic departure tore away another vital layer of support. Even the unwavering Princess Anne, famed for her tireless work ethic, cannot possibly keep pace with the endless stream of duties and demands. The cracks are beginning to show. Royal engagements are stacking up at a dizzying rate. Charities are pleading for royal patrons to keep their causes in the spotlight. The public still expects the monarchy to be visible and active, but there are simply not enough hands to share the load. What once seemed like a sleek, modern monarchy now looks fragile and perhaps even unsustainable. This is where Prince William steps into focus. As heir to the throne, William cannot ignore the challenges pressing down on his family's institution. Unlike his father, he seems to grasp the urgency of bringing in fresh reinforcements. Without new blood, the risk of burnout or collapse becomes dangerously real. And so, William's gaze turns naturally toward the younger royals, who have so far lived quieter lives away from the constant public eye. Lady Louise Windsor and her younger brother, James, Earl of Wessex. Their parents, Prince Edward and Sophie, have long been the monarchy's unsung heroes. They work diligently, step in during crises, and have managed to avoid the scandals that have tainted so many others. Dependable, modest, and deeply loyal, they represent exactly the kind of stability the crown so desperately needs. If their children chose to follow in their footsteps, they could breathe new life into the monarchy's worn-out image. But the options are already narrowing. Lady Louise has signaled her wish to chart her own independent course, stepping away from royal duties to live on her own terms. That leaves James. Still only a teenager, he suddenly finds himself at a crossroads that could shape not just his own future, but the fate of the monarchy itself. The crown's need for him has never been greater, and the decision he makes may carry consequences far beyond anything he imagined. Could Lady Louise's rejection have any impact on James's decision? Would it be easy for James to turn down the monarchy's request? Let's delve into the details of the effect Louise's rejection might have on James. Lady Louise's rejection and the weight on James. Lady Louise Windsor, the elder sister of James, has become one of the most captivating figures in the royal family's quiet drama. She represents a striking contrast in the story of duty, choice, and identity. When she turned 18, she had the full right to style herself as Her Royal Highness Princess Louise. With just that single decision, she could have stepped into the dazzling but demanding world of royalty. That title alone would have opened doors to influence, privilege, and a lifetime of public recognition. Yet, in a move that surprised many, Louise gently turned her back on the opportunity. Instead of embracing the crown, she chose to remain known simply as Lady Louise Windsor, free from the expectations of monarchy. Currently, she is studying English at the prestigious University of St. Andrews in Scotland, the same institution that once nurtured the romance between Prince William and Catherine Middleton.
Okay, no, this one I think should be fine. But I did get a bit emotional when I sang it in there. It's just like unbelievable venue.
But rather than being swept into royal tradition, Louise has voiced her interest in exploring careers far beyond the palace gates, fields such as the military, diplomacy, or even law. These are not just career options. They are statements of intent. They show her determination to live as her own person, unchained by royal titles. For Prince William, however, her refusal carried a sting of disappointment. With the monarchy under increasing pressure to modernize and remain relevant, he had hoped that Louise, with her intelligence, charm, and natural grace, might have stepped onto the royal front line. Her presence could have lightened the load on senior royals and symbolized a new, relatable face of the crown. But Louise's decision firmly closed that door. And here lies the ripple effect. By stepping back, Louise has inadvertently shifted the weight of expectation onto her younger brother, James. Without her to share the spotlight or responsibilities, James is no longer merely the quiet second child of Edward and Sophie. Instead, he has suddenly become the monarchy's next great hope, the young royal who might carry the torch forward. If Louise had chosen differently, James might have been free to fade into the background, to enjoy a life largely shielded from the constant gaze of the public and the press. But her independence has forced circumstances into his lap. Now, the decisions James makes are no longer just personal. They are deeply symbolic. Will he accept the call to royal duty? Or will he, like his sister, quietly retreat into a private life of choice and freedom? Let's dig briefly into the details of the two roads before James. James at the crossroads. As James nears his 18th birthday, he faces a life-altering decision that could shape both his future and the monarchy's path. He must choose between living privately or stepping into the royal spotlight by accepting Prince William's invitation to become a working royal. This role would thrust him into constant public duties, ceremonies, charity work, and international visits, while sacrificing much of his personal freedom. Though every move would be closely scrutinized, James would also gain a powerful platform to support meaningful causes, inject fresh energy into the royal family, and help redefine the monarchy for a modern era. There is a powerful allure in this path. He could become the face of a younger generation within the monarchy, showing the world that tradition and modern values do not have to stand apart. They can walk hand in hand. His involvement would also ease the pressure on senior royals, who are increasingly stretched thin by the demands of duty. In this way, James would not only be serving his country but also preserving an institution many feel is at a turning point. Yet the price of such a role would be heavy. He would trade the simplicity of anonymity for a lifetime of scrutiny. Every decision, every friendship, and even his private struggles could become headlines. The crown may not sit on his head, but the weight of duty would never leave his shoulders. On the other hand, James could decline the offer. In doing so, he would follow the example of his sister, choosing a quieter, more private life away from the demands of the throne. He could go to university, chase professional dreams, explore passions, and live by his own timetable rather than one dictated by centuries of tradition. Freedom Privacy and independence would be his to enjoy, but such freedom would come with its own consequence. His decision would send a message that the younger royals may no longer wish to bind themselves to the crown. For the monarchy, this would be no small matter. The institution is already facing what some describe as a staffing crisis, with fewer working royals carrying an increasing burden of responsibility. If James walks away, it will deepen the challenge for Prince William as he looks to secure the future of the crown. The refusal could mark more than a personal choice. It could symbolize the gradual unraveling of a system not by deliberate reform, but by the simple will of those born into it. James's decision, whether yes or no, is not just about him. It may echo far beyond his 18th birthday, shaping the monarchy's future in ways no one can yet predict. One of the reasons for this complexity was Prince Edward's decision. What did he do? How did it affect his children? Why did he take that decision? Was it worth it? Let's find out. A royal life without the burden of HRH. When Prince Edward, the youngest son of Queen Elizabeth II, married Sophie Rhys-Jones in June 1999, the couple made a decision that would set their family apart from traditional royal expectations. With the blessing of the Queen, they chose a different path for their future children. Instead of automatically receiving the grand titles of Prince or Princess, their offspring would take on the more modest courtesy titles associated with the children of an earl. It was a conscious step toward raising their children in an environment less dominated by royal formality and more connected to the realities of everyday life. As a result of this arrangement, their son James entered the world not as a prince, but as Viscount Severn, a courtesy title linked to his father's earldom. For many years, he carried this title quietly, away from the intense spotlight that often follows those bearing the HRH style. Life remained relatively normal for James, at least by royal standards, but titles in the royal family are rarely static.
Precisely.
Yes. And I think having those times together in the summer allows those relationships. I mean, we're a lot more fortunate.
When Edward and Sophie were elevated to Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh in 2023, James's title shifted once more. He then became James, Earl of Wessex, reflecting his position as heir apparent to his father's earldom. However, one key distinction remained. James will never inherit the prestigious Duke of Edinburgh title. That dukedom, a significant honor tied closely to Prince Philip's legacy, will eventually return to the crown upon Edward's death, as agreed when the late Queen and Prince Philip initially structured the succession of titles. For James, this means his future will follow a quieter, more private course compared to some of his royal cousins. The reasoning behind this unusual decision has long fascinated royal watchers. According to the BBC, the choice was made deliberately to avoid some of the burdens of royal titles. In other words, Prince Edward and Sophie wanted to spare their children from the heavy weight of expectation, public scrutiny, and rigid duty that often accompanies the style of prince or princess. Sophie, now the Duchess of Edinburgh, gave a rare glimpse into their parenting philosophy during a 2020 interview. With a sense of practicality and maternal clarity, she explained, "We try to bring them up with the understanding that they are very likely to have to work for a living. Hence, we made the decision not to use HRH titles. They have them and can decide to use them from 18, but it's highly unlikely." Her words painted a vivid picture of a modern royal household, one where the children are prepared not for a lifetime of palaces and privilege, but for the possibility of forging their own careers and identities. By not being addressed as His or Her Royal Highness from childhood, James and his sister, Lady Louise Windsor, have been able to enjoy a more balanced upbringing. They attend regular schools, mingle with peers outside royal circles, and experience a taste of life beyond the gilded walls of monarchy. In many ways, this choice reflects a broader shift within the royal family, an attempt to adapt to the changing expectations of the public and the evolving role of monarchy in the 21st century. For James, Earl of Wessex, it marks the beginning of a life that balances noble heritage with grounded reality, a rare combination in the royal world. What would James's response be? How could it affect the monarchy? Let's delve into the uncertainties that cloud his decision, as all indicators point to his acceptance despite the weight of the responsibility and his tender age. The future hangs in the balance. James, Earl of Wessex, may be only 16th in line to the British throne, but his upcoming decision carries a weight far greater than his position suggests. What appears to be a personal choice for a young man on the brink of adulthood is, in reality, a reflection of a far bigger question. What role should the monarchy play in today's world? In an age where democracy, personal freedom, and individuality are celebrated, the old expectations of lifelong service and sacrifice to the crown seem increasingly at odds with modern values. For centuries, the monarchy has thrived on tradition. Younger royals were expected to step into roles of service, standing as visible symbols of continuity and loyalty to the nation. But times have changed. Today, many argue that royal blood should not automatically mean giving up personal dreams, ambitions, or independence. Instead, each prince and princess should have the freedom to decide whether they wish to serve or to live quietly as private citizens. And now, James finds himself at the very center of this debate. The situation is complicated by the fact that the monarchy itself is divided in vision. King Charles III is deeply rooted in tradition, believing in a slimmed but still visibly active royal family. His son, Prince William, however, appears to lean towards a slightly different model, one that emphasizes fewer working royals but places enormous responsibility on those who remain. For James, this creates a delicate crossroads. Should he walk the well-worn path of duty or follow the less predictable road of personal freedom? Interestingly, his older sister, Lady Louise Windsor, has already chosen the latter. She has stepped quietly into a private life, away from the flashing cameras and constant scrutiny. That choice, though respected, has left James with even greater pressure. The monarchy, still recovering from years of controversy and transition, waits anxiously for his answer. Looking across Europe, we see monarchies in places like Denmark, Sweden, and even Spain reshaping themselves. Younger royals in those countries have been allowed to fade into ordinary lives, pursuing careers, families, and passions without the heavy chain of public expectation. Yet, Britain's monarchy is unlike any other. Its global influence and historical significance mean that every decision, even from a royal as far down the line as James, becomes international news. As James approaches his 18th birthday, speculation grows louder. Will he step forward and take on the duties of a working royal, standing beside his parents and cousins as a representative of the crown? Or will he quietly step aside, following in his sister's footsteps and choosing independence over tradition? The truth is, whatever he decides will not only define his own future, but it could also set the tone for the monarchy in the coming decades. Will it remain an institution anchored in tradition, or will it adapt to the spirit of freedom that defines our age? The world waits for James's choice: tradition or independence, duty or freedom. His answer may be personal, but its echo will be heard far beyond palace walls. So, what do you think convinced James to accept the offer, despite its weight and his age? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.